Good afternoon and welcome back after the break. Before going to the break, we had covered few topics on eye examination that included ocular motility testing, and then Mr. Prem was covering the slit lamp examination for view. Now he will be continuing with his topic on slit lamp examination. Thank you, sir.
So we talked the lid, the conditions of the lid, different conditions of the lid that we need to assess with the help of slit lamp. Now I'll move to the conjunctiva, starting with the bulboconjunctiva, and which can be assessed, like you can see here, by everting the lid. The lid is everted so that you can assess the bulboconjunctiva, and in this you need to look for the conditions like any kind of papillae or any kind of follicles, and you can differentiate the papillae from follicles. Like papillae are the tiny dome-shaped nodules that form in the response to any subacute or chronic inflammation. But if you talk about follicles, follicles are a little larger in size than in compared to the papillae. And we also need to look for any kind of membranes or the pseudomembranes if they are formed in the conjunctiva, and which could be caused because of any adenoviruses, herpes simplex, or chlamydia, or chemical burns. So they normally causes the pseudomembranes or the membrane formations in the conjunctiva. So we need to look for any such kind of membrane formations if they are there. We also need to look for scarring, any kind of scarring which could be like trachoma scarring kind of things, or the bulbar or the tarsal conjunctiva. So we need to look for that, or any foreign body if it is there on the conjunctiva, that can also be assessed with the help of the slit lamp. Then for the limbal conjunctiva, we again need to look for papillae and the follicles there also. And in bulbar conjunctiva, we need to look for secretion, any kind of discharge if it is there, or any kind of chemosis which is called swelling, like कहीं पर अगर swelling हो रही है किसी bulbar conjunctiva में, वो भी आपको assess करनी होती है. And there could be even hyperemia. Hyperemia is like, that is because of the increased flow and dilation of the blood vessels in the conjunctiva. So any kind of hyperemia is there, that can also be assessed. And again we need to look for epithelial defect and the ulcers with the same technique. And you can take the help of fluorescein stain also in confirming your defects or any kind of foreign bodies in this. As I said earlier, once you stain with the fluorescein and seeing with the blue filter on slit lamp, then you will find that the area is highlighted as green if there is any abrasion on that. To look for episclera and sclera, we need to look for any kind of episcleritis or scleritis. So most episcleral and scleral abnormalities can be simply observed even with the help of pen light, if you have a good pen light with you. And for the details, you can take the help of slit lamp, where you need to look for episclera and sclera if they have any separate blood, because they both have separate blood supply. So we need to differentiate. We need to learn to differentiate how to differentiate the inflammation of sclera from episclera. So if you see, like conjunctival hyperemia has a red appearance with finger or less tuberculous vessels, whereas the deep episcleral, if it is, or scleral hyperemia is there, which is often violaceous. And if you just do a massage directly with a cotton swab, or just press with the help of cotton swab, and then you can see it can move the conjunctival vessels, but you can't move the deeper scleral vessels, So it confirms that whether the redness or the congestion or any deformity that you're seeing is in the superficial region or in the deeper portion. Even the topical vasoconstricting agents affect the conjunctival vessels much more than the deeper vessels. So you can take the help of vasoconstricted drugs. So if the inflammation is superficial, then it will get, like, the vessels will get constricted, and that confirms that inflammation is superficially or it is deeper. To differentiate the episcleritis from scleritis, episcleritis typically short light, and immunologically they are mediated and inflammation related to the allergy, and it can be diffuse, sectorial, or nodular, and they are non-tender, like there is no even if you are pressing, patient won't tell you about the pain, no ciliary pain, and there is no flare or cell in the anterior chamber. But in scleritis, you will see that there is a collagen vascular disease or the syphilis or tuberculosis which is associated with this. So we need to differentiate, because if you are able to differentiate the scleritis, then you need to look for these kind of things or other associated factors also which the patient might be having. So you need to, which might need again the physician's referral to go for details. Scleral thinning and complications of the uveitis, including glaucoma, is one of the features which is there are possibilities to have that in case of scleritis. It can be diffuse or sectorial or nodular and necrotizing. It is not necessary, but often it is seen that to some extent the visual acuity may also get reduced. There is deeper hyperemia in this, and there is tenderness. Patient normally comes with the complaint of pain. There could be ciliary pain, or even the patient may say there is a photophobia complaint, and flare and cells are seen in the AC. For the corneal assessment, you need to look for any kind of lacerations, if there have been any tear following to the injury, which you can see here. So that you can see with your these illuminations with the help of slit lamp. Even epithelial defect and the ulcers can best be seen if required really to go for a stain. You can see for the keratic precipitates, if they are there, which are like accumulation of inflammatory cells on the corneal endothelium following to intraocular inflammation, which could be varying in size. According to that, you need to grade them. And then you need to look for corneal edema, which you can see here with the cut section of the beam. The cornea has been divided into different portions, and you can differentiate the corneal edema from a scarring even by seeing a width of the slit that you have made, because in the edematous area normally you will find the width is wider. It is compared to the in the area of scarring. It may be same, or if there have been some tissue loss in case of scarring, then you will find the beam is thinner in that portion. But in case of edema, you will always find compared to the other portion, you will find the beam is thicker. So that differentiate your corneal edema. And you can look for foreign body also, as I said earlier, like you can see here. This is the foreign body, and you can even take the help of, if it's too small, if it's not able to see simply with the help of slit lamp, you can take the help of fluorescent dye also, which will make it appear green on the surface. You can assess the antechamber depth with the help of the slit lamp. So optical section of the slit lamp at the angle of around 60 degrees is directed onto the peripheral cornea just inside the limbus, and you can assess whether it's normal or not. And it's normally said the width of the cornea, the slit of the cornea, like 1/4 of the width of the cornea. If it is the antechamber depth, the slit is same as 1/4 of the corneal slit, then it is normal. If it is less than the 1/4 of the slit of the cornea, that means the antechamber is shallow. You can assess for the flare, any living cells, white cells or the red cells in the antechamber. You can look for hyphema, which is blood accumulation following to any injury. जो कि खून आकर के एंटी चैम्बर में इकट्ठा हो जाता है, उसे आप हाइपीमा कहते हैं. तो वो आप देख इससे असेस कर सकते हैं, like you can see here. And you can even look for hypopyon, which you can see here. This is the pus accumulation. This is a purulent neurotrophic exudates in the anterior chamber. Usually they are white in color or white or yellowish in color, and usually seen for the corneal or intraocular infections. Like in case of ulcers, normally you see this kind of this kind of accumulations. And you can measure its height also, like how much it is, with the help of your vertical, by adjusting your vertical slit. So that in the following visit you can compare it again, like if it was 1 mm earlier, and how much it is now. So that will let you know about your like what have been improvement or the things have been worsening with the medications. You can look for, you need to look for iris, where you need to look for anterior uveitis, which can be like the cause for which includes normally the autoimmune disorders like juvenile and rheumatoid arthritis. So normally, like whenever you are suspecting any kind of uveitis, recurrent history of uveitis, you need to rule out for all these histories. If there is like patient को आपको पूछना ही है कि आपको कहीं पैरों में, जोड़ों में, कहीं घुटनों में दर्द वगैरह तो नहीं होता है. So there are possibilities to have it associated with this. So you need to look for all these autoimmune disorders. They could be the infections like syphilis, TB, herpes zoster, herpes simplex, and any adenovirus infections. Or even the malignancy can cause the problem, or any kind of injury if the patient has had. So you need to try to get all these informations during your history. Many times we don't ask for these questions in the history, or if the patient has not been interested to tell you, then when we start examining your patient, at that time you need to ask for related history to the finding what you have got, and you come to know, yeah, patient has got some associated things with that. You need to look for the, and even in case of in this, normally the patient has got iritis, they come with a complaint that vision has got blurry. There is a mild to marked pain. There is photophobia complaint, diffusely red with the circumciliary flushes. There is smaller irregular shapes of the pupil, which is because of the posterior synechias which are present. The pupil becomes irregular. There may be KPs on the posterior surface of the cornea, mutton of different sizes, and they need to look for flare and the cells in the antechamber. And it may be like acute or chronic. It may be sudden onset, or it may be chronic. It would have been existing from long, and patient has come for the follow-up, or patient is there may be the recurrence of this. So if patient has had earlier these kind of things, we need to specify that the follow-up case of this particular or the diagnosed case of this acute or the chronic iritis. So whatever it is. So this is how the you need to include your things in the history. And iridodialysis, if it is there, that can also be assessed with this. And for the lens, you need to look for the cataract, any kind of opacity in the lens, and then you can make a section of it under dilated condition, and you can assess like which portion of the lens has got the opacification. You can look for subluxation, that is called dislocation of the lens, like subluxation like अगर लेंस अपनी पोजीशन से दूसरी जगह मूव कर गया है, बट अगर वो प्यूपिल का एरिया भी कहीं कुछ हिस्सा कवर कर रहा है, तो वी कॉल इट सबलक्सेशन. लाइक इट कुड बी इन डिफरेंट डायरेक्शन, एंटीरियरली, पोस्टीरियरली, इट कुड बी लाइक सुपीरियरली और इंफीरियरली. बट इफ इट हैज नॉट डिसलोकेट प्रॉपर कंप्लीटली, अगर पूरी तरह से वो प्यूपिलरी रीजन में नहीं रहा है, वो पोस्टीरियरली चला गया है, रेयरली इट हैपेंस एंटीरियरली आता है, बट तो वो आपको देखना है कि हाउ टू डिफरेंशिएट द सबलक्सेशन फ्रॉम डिसलोकेशन, और डिसलोकेशन आल्सो कॉल्ड लक्सेशन. And apart from this, these are the accessories and here which are used with the help of slit lamp, like filters, conio lens, applanation tonometer, which I'll talk in my last presentation, and optical pachymeters as pachymetry to see the thickness of the cornea, slit lamp cameras and photography to take the different pictures of the different parts of the eye, potential acuity meters, fundus examination with the help of various lenses, and then ophthalmic laser in the slit lamp also attached. So with the help of that, you do the like therapeutic use of slit lamp. But in my presentation, I'll just continuing with the filters only. Let us see the use of all the filters, how they play important role. We already discussed about the cobalt blue filter, which is used for conjunction with the fluorescein, and here the emission maximum is at around 530 to 535 nanometers, and its applications for Fleischer's ring, and as we saw about any kind of abnormalities on the cornea. Diffuse filters, they are defocused and diffuse over a large area. They reduce the intensity of the light, so the patient, especially the patient who are like asymptomatic due to light, so in them we need to see the entire surface, and you need to take the help of diffuse filters. So you can assess overall eye structures and the adnexa with the help of diffuse filters. Neutral density filters, you reduce the intensity of the light, and there is no spectral cutoff in this, so it is used to view the eye and adnexa again. Green filters, they are also called red-free filters. They are helpful in viewing the blood vessels and even the increased contrast of the red colors on black. This is how it helps in assessing you the blood vessels, and rose angle staining also helps you in assessing your anti-segment findings. Polarizing filters, they remove the glare from the ocular surface and reduces the unwanted specular reflections, and even photographing of the.
पूछिए जयपुर, अपना सवाल पूछिए.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, what is the difference between iridodialysis and iridodialysis?
अच्छा.
Difference between iridodialysis and dialysis.
अच्छा, iridodialysis and dialysis. ठीक है. और कोई सवाल है आपका?
Thank you, sir.
ठीक है. He asked the difference between iridodialysis and iridodialysis.
Iridodialysis is basically the movement of the iris that you see because of the zonules if they get ruptured. And iridodialysis is basically you can see the dilated pupil because of the, and it could be because of any kind of trauma or any kind of abnormality, as I was talking in case of acute iritis that can cause that iridodialysis.
Okay, hope this answers your question.
Then heat absorbing filters, they absorbs the heat more than 700 nanometers, which is capable of thermal damage, and it helps you like in avoiding the thermal damage, and it is inbuilt in the instrument itself, so it enhances the patient's comfort. Yellow filters, they are the barrier filters, blocks the blue exciting lights, and it transmits only the yellow-green fluorescence, so it increases the contrast, and it's useful for contact lens fitting. For
So
UV
yellow
filters,
filter is used along with that cobalt blue filter.
UV filters,
Yellow filter is used, I think, with the along with the
cobalt blue filter.
Acha.
UV filters, they absorb the UV rays and help in reducing the damage to the ocular tissues, and so it's preset inside the lamp itself. So this is how the slit lamp, you can take the help of in doing gonioscopy. This is how it helps in doing the gonioscopy. It's used to visualize and assess the antechamber. You can see the shape of it is a cone-shaped contact lenses containing the reflecting mirror, which is used with the help of the slit lamp. And commonly available, they could be like 1 mirror, 2 mirror, 3 mirror. There are different designs of the gonioscopes which are available. So if you see the indications for gonioscopy, normally like when you see suspect a narrow or closer angle, or any kind of angle pigmentations, angle suitable for pupillary dilations, or neovascularization at angles, and any tumor, foreign bodies, or peripheral anterior synechias. So this is all about the anti-segment examination. I think now we can move to the investigations, which is the next talk for today's presentation. As I talked earlier, when I was starting this topic, we as a clinician plays a very important role in helping our patients in making a correct diagnosis.
चित्रकूट पूछिए अपना सवाल.
गुड इवनिंग सर.
हाँ,
मैं रूबी लेंस के बारे में कुछ जानना चाहता हूँ सर. रूबी लेंस का भी यूज स्लिट लैम्प में जो यूज करते हैं उसके लिए भी सर थोड़ा बताइए. रूबी लेंस का क्या है यूज?
ठीक.
Ruby lens is basically used to assess the posterior segment, and actually we are not discussing the posterior segment assessment in this. Most probably in the next session we will be talking about it, and we will be coming with the details about this, how to assess, how your slit lamp and the accessory lenses helps you in assessing the posterior segment. So this is used basically for examination of the fundus. Now, so diagnostic test, how important they are, like in making you're helping your patient in making a correct diagnosis, and even for therapeutics, the planning of therapeutics. I'll be talking about some of the investigative methods like pupillary examination, fluorescein staining, conjunctival smear, lacrimal syringing, IOP measurements, keratometry, exophthalmometry, ptosis evaluation I'll be taking in detail, and visual field examination. For pupillary examination, we need to look for number of pupils. Normally it is one only, but sometimes it is a congenital deformity to have more than one, which is called polychoria. Location, whether it's located in the right position in the center or not. Size of the pupil, whether it is normal around 3 to 4 millimeter or not, or it is symmetrical or not. Like in this picture, you can see it's asymmetrical. It's bigger in the left eye, which is called anisocoria. And shape of the pupil, if it's regular or irregular, you look for color. Although the pupil color is always dark, but that depends upon the any abnormality in the posterior side, like in the lens, then that makes you to appear the color of the pupil as white, like if it is cataract or even the retinoblastoma cases, you will find a different color. Near responses, like how the pupil is responding for the near targets, and this is like normal thing when a patient is accommodating, a pupil constricts. So how is the near response for the pupil that you need to see, and the pupillary reactions we need to see. We can see a technique here. It's a video also I'll be showing. So we need to look for direct and conceptual reactions. In the direct, we put a light in front of the same eye and assessing the same eye. But in conceptual, we putting the light in front of one eye and we are assessing the effect on the other eye. So for a normal response, you will find that the pupil constricts to direct light. And in conceptual, if it is not normal, if it is normal, then pupil constrict to the lights on swinging to the opposite pupil. You can see a video here. No, I don't think it's working. I think main file is not there in this. So you need to look for, with the help of swinging light test, you need to look for any kind of defect, which could be either afferent pupillary defect, or which is called RAPD, relative afferent pupillary, or it could be efferent pupillary defect. If it is afferent defect, it is mainly because of the retinal or the optical nerve problems, and if it is efferent, this could be because of third nerve or pupillary muscle problem. The optic nerve problem, like the afferent pupillary defect, is also called as Marcus gun pupil, where you can see intact consensual light reflexes there, but paradoxical pupil dilates to the indirect light, and it occurs on moving the light from opposite to the affected eye. But in case of efferent, it is different. Here afferent eye loses the consensual and the direct light reflex. So on direct light reflex, both afferent and direct and the consensual reflexes are absent in this case, which is normally seen in case of third nerve palsy or pupillary muscles, or when the pupillary muscles are affected. And here the unaffected eye maintain the consensual and the direct reflex. This was the main problem. So it was a video here. I think it's not working because main file I think is not there in this. So for fluorescein staining, you can see here this is a blotting paper which has a stain in this, which is a fluorescein dye. It helps, it's an orange color dye, and which is normally seen in case of blue filter, cobalt blue light, and the dye is placed in the fornix. Patient is asked to blink so that it spreads uniformly over the surface, and red free cobalt blue filter is used with the slit lamp, and any abnormality can be detected from this. So for the normal values, you will find that dye doesn't adhere to corneal surface or no area of staining is detected, but in case of abnormal, you will find the eye adheres to the surface, and you can see the abnormalities in the form of green color. For conjunctival smear, it's a smear which is prepared by the discharge collected from the infected area of the conjunctiva, and which is placed over a glass plate and is spread over it. And for method for taking the sample is like you need to take the help of the platinum spatula, which is autoclaved, and that is spread over the plate. This helps you, it enables the study of any infective organism or cytological changes if they are there. And sometimes even the topical anesthesia can be used to have this sample, and which is fixed under the 95% of methyl alcohol and stain. And then even the culture media for the fungal and bacteria can also be assessed with the help of this. So the indications for this are corneal ulcer, anophthalmitis, ulcerative blepharitis, and dactylocystitis. For the assessing lacrimal status, first let us understand about the lacrimal passage, what it is exactly made up of. Like you can see, here is the puncta. There are two openings medially to the both the lids. There is a slightly raised portion which is called the laminar papillae, and then you can see there is a vertical canaliculus, and which bends with the right angle, and the right angle is called as ampulla, superior and inferior, and then which passes to the common canaliculus and opens to the sac. So any kind of deformity can be like assessed, but before that we need to understand how it functions. So if you see the physiological of lacrimal drainage system, then 70% of the tears flows from the upper puncta and 30% from the lower puncta. And when the lid is closed, it is the positive and the negative pressure which is created with the help of the preseptal orbicularis muscle, and that helps it to work like a tear pump. And the help of the gravity, when the lids are open, it goes off. This is how when the lid is closed, it fills up the tears, the lacrimal sac, and with the open, it passes away. For general inspection of the lacrimal system, we inspect the first lids and the puncta, and then palpate the lacrimal sac to determine if it is enlarged due to dactylocystitis or mucocele. And on compression, if you find there is some reflex or the mucopollulant matter which is coming, like you can see here, so that suggests about the dactylocystitis if it is associated with pain as well. Even slit lamp examination help you knowing about the epiphora, where you can insert the fluorescent dye, and you need to see the passes, how long it takes to clear out the dye from the eye. Normally it's around 2 minutes, which it takes. If it is more than 2, it means it lets us know there is some problem with the drainage system. For lacrimal syringing, which is done for the mechanical obstructions. So if you see here, first we take the help of dilator to dilate the puncta, and then cannula, is passed, and you literally pull the lower lid so that the vertical canaliculus and the horizontal canaliculus both are straight, so the cannula passes through this. And then you need to feel the stop, what kind of stop it is there. If it is soft stop or hard stop, that will let you know whether is the about the patency of the system. So cannula touches the medial wall of the lacrimal sac and lacrimal bone. A definite endpoint is reached. That means you can see here. That means there is no blockage. But if it is a soft stop, a spongy endpoint is felt, like you can see here. And in this case, which talks about the blockage in the canalicular system. Or even if you can see when your plunger is pressed, then you see if there is no swelling over the sac area, that means the fluid has not gone to you, there is a blockage into that. So for interpretation, you can come to know about there is no obstruction if clear fluid comes. There is partial obstruction if the fluid comes from with the pressure. There is full obstruction if no fluid passes into the nose and may reflect from the same puncta. Same puncta, if it's regarding from same puncta, that means there is obstruction in the same or common canaliculus. And if it regurgitates from the opposite puncta, that means there is obstruction in the lacrimal lower sac or the nasolacrimal duct. Even for functional obstruction, you need to assess with the help of Jones dye test, which helps you knowing whether it is the functional obstruction, because the passage may be normal. You may find on syringing the fluid goes into the patient into the mouth, but still the patient might be having a complaint of epiphora, and that could be because the pump may not be functioning properly. So Jones dye test helps you knowing that. We can take the help of even the IOP measurements with this, with the help of various tonometers. This could be like distal tension, indentation tonometer, applanation tonometer, Perkins, Tonopan, and NCT. And practically I think we all know about this. I'm not going for details of this. The Schurz tonometer, and then applanation tonometer. There are different principles they are based on. And this is how you need to see the Myers in this and the inner edge. And then NCT, which is the non-contact tonometer.
Students, we are coming to the end of our program. Today, Mr. Prem has very well covered in a very detailed manner, covered all the topics on method of examination and on investigations of eye. I hope these topics help you to prepare for your exams, and students, best of luck for your exams. Thank you.